This case begins on a Tuesday morning, on a quiet suburban street corner where the only sounds are the distant hum of a lawnmower and the rustle of autumn leaves. The subject of the stop is Major Elias Vance, a 25-year veteran and a high-ranking commander in the Metropolitan Police Department. He is off duty, driving his personal 10-year-old sedan, returning from a morning of fishing. He is wearing a faded polo shirt, worn jeans, and a baseball cap. He is also black. The officer initiating the stop is Agent Colfax of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Colfax, driving an unmarked federal SUV, pulls behind Major Vance and activates a concealed set of red and blue lights. He does not state a reason for the stop. He will proceed to detain a decorated police major for 47 minutes, accusing him of being an undocumented immigrant, demanding to see a visa, and placing him in handcuffs, all based on nothing more than the color of his skin. This encounter, captured on a bystander's cell phone and Agent Colfax's own body camera, would ultimately result in a federal investigation, the agent's termination, and a landmark $42 million settlement paid by the U.S. government. The flashing lights appeared in Elias Vance's rearview mirror with a jarring suddenness that cut through the peaceful solitude of his drive. There was no siren, just the silent, strobing pulses of red and blue. His training kicked in instantly, a quarter-century of muscle memory overriding any flicker of surprise or annoyance. He signaled, pulled his sedan smoothly to the curb, and killed the engine. He rolled his window down, placed both hands on the steering wheel at the 10 and 2 positions, and waited. Through the side mirror, he saw a dark SUV, a model favored by federal agencies, looming behind him. Two men in tactical vests stepped out. They didn't look like local cops. Their movements were rigid, their expressions set. The driver, a man with a thick neck and a jaw clenched so tight it looked like it could crack walnuts, approached his window. The name stitched onto his vest read Colfax. The agent's eyes swept over Elias, from his weathered baseball cap to the simple, unassuming clothes, and then lingered on his face. The initial assessment was visible, a micro-expression of confirmation, as if what he saw matched a preconceived image in his head. "Let me see your hands," Colfax ordered, his voice flat and devoid of any preamble. Elias didn't move them from the wheel. "They're right here, officer," he said, his tone even and respectful. On the steering wheel, Colfax's gaze narrowed. He leaned closer, his hand resting on the butt of his holstered sidearm. "License and registration," it wasn't a request. Elias reached slowly, deliberately, for the glove compartment, announcing his every move. "I'm reaching for my registration now. It's in the glove box." He retrieved the documents and then reached for his wallet in his back pocket. "My license is in my wallet." He handed them over. Colfax barely glanced at them. He held the plastic card with Elias Vance's name and photograph, but his eyes were fixed on Elias. "That's not what I'm interested in," the agent said, a sneer tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I need to see your papers. Your visa. What's your status?" The question hung in the quiet air of the suburban street, heavy and loaded. Elias felt a familiar, weary tightening in his chest, an emotion he'd spent a lifetime learning to control. He was a major in the Metropolitan Police Department. He commanded 3 precincts and over 400 officers. He had been shot at, decorated for valor, and had shaken hands with mayors and senators. But in that moment, in his own city, a few miles from his own headquarters, he was just another black man being asked to prove he belonged. He kept his voice perfectly level. "I'm a United States citizen, born and raised in this city." Colfax let out a short, derisive laugh. "Yeah? That's what they all say? You got a passport on you? A birth certificate? Anything to prove that?" The absurdity was breathtaking. No one drives around with their birth certificate. Colfax knew that. This was a test. It was a power play. "My driver's license is a valid, state-issued identification," Elias stated, careful to keep the edge out of his voice. "It confirms my identity and my residency. I'm not required to carry a passport on my person." Colfax's partner, a younger agent named Rigg, shifted his weight on the other side of the car, his expression unreadable but tinged with a hint of discomfort. Colfax, however, seemed to feed on the confrontation. He leaned in further, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. "You're not understanding me. I'm a federal officer with ICE. We're conducting an operation in this area targeting illegal aliens. You fit a description. Elias knew this was a lie. There was no description. The description was his skin color. What description did I fit, Agent Colfax? He asked, his gaze unwavering. And what was the probable cause for this traffic stop? I wasn't speeding, I used my signal, and my vehicle is in perfect working order. The mention of legal standards seemed to infuriate Colfax. It was a language he wasn't expecting from the man in the beat-up sedan. The probable cause is my professional judgment, he snapped. And right now, my judgment tells me you're being evasive. Now, for the last time, show me proof of your legal status, or I'm taking you in. A woman walking her dog on the opposite sidewalk had stopped, her pace slowing as she watched the scene unfold. She pulled out her phone, though she tried to be discreet about it. Colfax noticed her, and his posture straightened, his chest puffing out. He was performing now. This was his stage. He gestured with the driver's license. This could be fake. The IDs you people get are getting better and better. But we have ways of finding out. We can hold you for 72 hours, no questions asked, while we verify your identity. You want to spend 3 days in a federal detention center? Is that what you want? The threat was explicit, the disregard for due process laid bare. Elias knew his rights. He also knew that in a roadside confrontation, rights were only as good as the officer willing to respect them. Colfax was not that officer. He was an enforcer looking for a target, and he had found one. Elias could see the path this was on. He had seen it 100 times from the other side of the badge. An officer, convinced of his own righteousness, doubling down on a bad stop, letting his ego and his prejudice write a script that could only end in disaster. He had a choice. He could escalate, argue, demand a supervisor, all things that would likely provoke Colfax further. Or he could try a different tactic, de-escalation through revelation. He took a slow, measured breath. Agent Colfax, he said, his voice dropping slightly but gaining a new weight of authority. I understand you have a job to do, but you are making a significant error in judgment. I am a sworn law enforcement officer myself. Colfax's face broke into a wide, mocking grin. It was the reaction Elias had expected. Oh, here we go. The magic words. I'm a cop. Buddy, if I had $1 for every time some lowlife told me he was a cop, I'd have retired last year. What are you, security at the local mall? Let me guess, you've got one of those tin badges you bought online. The condescension was thick enough to taste. Elias ignored it. He kept his hands visible, moving with calculated slowness. I'm reaching for my wallet again. My credential is in there, right next to my driver's license that you're still holding. Colfax's grin remained, but his eyes were watchful, suspicious. You pull out anything other than a wallet, and this interaction is going to end very differently for you. You understand me? Elias slid his wallet out. He didn't open it. He held it out, flat in his palm. My police identification is inside. Colfax snatched the wallet from his hand. He flipped it open. His eyes fell upon the polished metal shield of the Metropolitan Police Department, and beneath it, the ID card. The photo was of a younger Elias, clean-shaven and serious in his dress uniform. The name was clearly printed, Elias Vance. And below it, the rank, Major. For a fleeting second, the smug certainty on Colfax's face flickered. It was like a crack appearing in a dam. He looked from the ID to Elias's face, then back to the ID. He saw the official city seal, the holographic overlay. It was undeniably real, but the cognitive dissonance was too great. The man in front of him, in the old car, the casual clothes, the black skin, could not be a police major. His entire worldview rebelled against the idea. Prejudice is a powerful filter, and Colfax's was working overtime. He chose to believe the lie his bias was telling him over the truth in his hand. He snapped the wallet shut. A fake, he declared, his voice louder now, trying to recapture his lost authority. A damn good one, I'll give you that. But you're not just an illegal now. You're impersonating a police officer. That's a felony. You are in a world of trouble. He tossed the wallet onto the passenger seat. Step out of the car. Now. Hands behind your back. Elias did not move immediately. Agent, I advise you to stop and think about what you're doing, he said, his voice still calm, but now laced with a cold, hard warning. Take my ID. Run my name. Call my department. The number is on the back of the card. You are about to cross a line you cannot uncross, but Colfax was too far gone. He had committed, and to back down now would be to admit he was wrong, that his instincts, his entire basis for the stop, were rotten with prejudice. He yanked the car door open. Out. Now. Or I'll drag you out. He grabbed Elias by the arm, his grip tight and punishing. Elias, knowing that resisting would only make things worse, complied. He stepped out of the vehicle, his movements stiff with controlled anger. The morning air was cool, but he could feel a hot flush of humiliation creeping up his neck. The woman across the street was no longer pretending not to watch. Her phone was held up high, its camera lens a small, dark-eyed bearing witness. Colfax shoved him against the side of his own car, the metal cool against his cheek. I told you to put your hands behind your back, he yelled, twisting Elias's arm up at a painful angle. The click of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was unnaturally loud in the quiet street. They bit into his wrists, cold and tight. Agent Rigg had moved around the car and now stood a few feet away, his hand on his own weapon, his face a mask of conflict. He looked at the high-quality police ID lying on the car seat, then at the man being cuffed, and then at his partner, whose face was now contorted with rage. Rigg knew, on some level, that this was wrong. He had seen the ID. But Colfax was the senior agent. He was in charge. So Rigg did nothing. You think you're clever, don't you? Colfax sneered, his breath hot on Elias's neck as he patted him down roughly. Get a fake badge, think you can fool everyone. Well, you didn't fool me. We're going to run your prints, and when they come back showing you're some dirtbag from south of the border, you're going straight to a deportation flight. You'll never see this country again. Elias turned his head slowly. He looked directly into Colfax's eyes. The anger was gone from his own, replaced by a profound, chilling calm. It was the look of a man who held a royal flush while his opponent was bluffing with a pair of twos. You have made your choice, Agent, Elias said, his voice quiet but resonant. Now you will live with it. I am entitled to a phone call. Colfax laughed again, a harsh, ugly sound. A phone call. You're watching too much TV. You're under administrative detention for immigration violations. You don't have the right to a phone call, actually, Elias corrected him. According to 8 CFR 2873, a person arrested without a warrant shall be advised of the reasons for their arrest and any charges, and of their right to be represented by counsel. Access to a telephone is required to contact legal counsel or family. I am invoking that right. The citation was so specific, so precise, that it momentarily stunned Colfax into silence. He stared at Elias, a flicker of doubt finally, truly, taking root. Where would a supposed illegal immigrant learn federal regulations? But he had come too far. The handcuffs were on. The threats had been made. He couldn't fold now. Fine. He spat, trying to regain control. You want your call? You get one call. Make it a good one. It's the last one you'll be making for a while. He pulled Elias's phone from his pocket, unlocked it with the fingerprint scanner under Elias's direction, and held it up. Who are you calling? Your coyote. Elias ignored the jibe. He recited a number from memory. It wasn't to a lawyer. It wasn't to his wife. It was a direct, private line that bypassed dispatchers and secretaries. Colfax dialed, a smirk still playing on his lips, and put the phone on speaker. It rang twice. A gruff, familiar voice answered. Henderson. Colfax's smirk faltered. He recognized the name. Frank Henderson was the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department. Chief Henderson, Elias said, his voice echoing slightly from the phone's speaker. It's Elias Vance. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, then the chief's voice, sharp with concern. Elias? What's wrong? Where are you? I'm on the corner of Oak and 12th, Elias said, his eyes locked on Colfax, whose face was rapidly draining of color. The agent's jaw had gone slack, his bravado vanishing like smoke. I've been detained by 2 ICE agents. The senior agent's name is Colfax. He has me in handcuffs. He believes I'm an undocumented immigrant and is refusing to accept my credentials. The silence on the phone was heavy, followed by a sound that was pure, controlled fury. He what? Stay on the line, Elias. Don't say another word to them. I'm on my way. Every car in the 1st and 3rd precinct is on their way. The line went dead. Colfax slowly lowered the phone, his hand trembling slightly. He looked at Elias, then at his partner Rigg, who now looked physically ill. The reality of the situation crashed down on Colfax with the force of a tidal wave. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't a fake ID. This was real. He had just arrested, assaulted, and threatened to deport the 3rd highest-ranking officer in the entire city police department. The quiet suburban street was about to become the epicenter of a jurisdictional and political firestorm, and he was standing at ground zero. The sound came first, a distant, rising chorus of sirens. Not the frantic yelp of a single car, but the layered, converging wail of a fleet. Within 90 seconds, the first MPD cruiser screamed around the corner, followed by another and another. They didn't park haphazardly. They formed a disciplined, semicircular perimeter, sealing off the street. The message was clear. This was their scene now. The flashing lights of a half-dozen police cars painted the trees and houses in frantic strokes of red and blue, overwhelming the single strobe from Colfax's SUV. Doors opened and uniformed officers emerged, their faces grim, their hands resting near their holsters as they took in the sight of a man in handcuffs leaning against a car, flanked by 2 federal agents. They recognized the man in cuffs instantly. It was Major Vance. Their major. Whispers turned to shocked murmurs over their radios. Then, a black sedan with city plates cut through the line of cruisers and screeched to a halt. The passenger door flew open and Chief Frank Henderson emerged. He was a bull of a man, his suit jacket straining at the shoulders, his face a thundercloud of rage. He wasn't alone. Following him out of the car was Captain Eva Rostova, the notoriously meticulous head of the Internal Affairs Bureau. Her expression was cold, analytical, and her own body camera was already recording. Henderson strode directly toward Colfax, ignoring Rigg completely. He didn't shout. His voice was a low, dangerous growl that cut through the noise of the idling engines. What in God's name do you think you're doing? Colfax, who 10 minutes ago had been the picture of arrogant authority, now looked like a schoolboy caught cheating on a final exam. He stammered, his words tumbling over each other. Chief. Sir. This man. He fit a description. He was uncooperative. We had reasonable suspicion to investigate his immigration status. Henderson stopped less than a foot from him, invading his personal space. Reasonable suspicion, he roared, his voice finally exploding. This man is Major Elias Vance. He has served this city for 25 years. He has bled for this city. His immigration status is that he is more of a patriot than you will ever be. Now take those cuffs off my major. Now Colfax fumbled for the key, his hands shaking so badly he could barely fit it into the lock. Captain Rostova was now standing beside Elias, her presence a shield. Major, are you injured? She asked, her voice professional but laced with concern. My wrists are bruised, Elias said calmly, rubbing the raw, red marks left by the cuffs. Otherwise, I am unharmed. Chief Henderson turned his attention back to the now petrified ICE agent. Your name is Colfax. I want your badge number, and I want your supervisor's name and contact information. You are on a recorded line, and you are being filmed by multiple officers. Everything you say from this point on will be part of a federal complaint. Just then, another unmarked vehicle arrived. This one driven by a harried-looking man in a suit who flashed an IC credential to the officers forming the perimeter. He was the local field office director, summoned by a frantic call from a panicked Rigg. He saw the sea of MPD cars, the chief of police, the head of IAB, and his 2 agents standing pale-faced, and he knew his day, and likely his career, had just taken a catastrophic turn. He rushed over, his hands held up in a placating gesture. Chief Henderson, I am Assistant Director Shaw. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. Henderson turned his glare on him. A misunderstanding? My major was assaulted, illegally detained, and threatened with deportation by your agent based on what I can only assume is racial profiling of the most ignorant kind. This isn't a misunderstanding, Director. This is a federal crime committed under the color of authority. Colfax tried to speak, to defend himself. He had a fake ID, he mumbled, a last, desperate attempt to salvage his actions. Captain Rostova stepped forward, holding up Elias's wallet, the major's credential gleaming in the light. This ID has been authenticated, Agent Colfax, she said, her voice dripping with ice. It is as real as the lawsuit that will be filed against you and your agency by the end of the day. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Agent Colfax and Agent Rigg were ordered into their supervisor's car, disarmed, and placed on administrative leave before they even left the scene. The bystander who had recorded the initial confrontation eagerly provided her footage to Captain Rostova, as did 2 other neighbors who had started filming when the police arrived. The digital evidence was overwhelming and damning. Major Vance gave a calm, factual, and meticulous statement, his police training allowing him to recall every word, every threat, every action with perfect clarity. He declined medical attention, but photographs were taken of the deep, angry welts on his wrists. Chief Henderson stood by his side the entire time, a protective, furious presence. He assured Elias that the city and the department would spare no expense. "We are with you, Elias," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "All the way. We will not let this stand." In the days that followed, the story exploded. The bystanders' video went viral, a sickeningly clear depiction of Colfax's sneering arrogance and Elias's quiet dignity. The body camera footage, obtained through official channels, was even more damning. News outlets across the country picked up the story. "I see Agent Detains Black Police Major. Accuses him of being an illegal alien." The public outcry was deafening. The incident became a national symbol of racial profiling at its most absurd and dangerous, proof that no amount of status, service, or authority can protect a black man from being seen as a threat. The institutional response was swift, driven by the sheer force of public humiliation. ICE launched an internal investigation that concluded in record time. Agent Colfax was terminated for gross misconduct and violations of civil rights. Agent Rigg was suspended for 6 months without pay and demoted for his failure to intervene. A formal, public apology was issued by the Secretary of Homeland Security. But apologies were not enough. Major Vance, with the full backing of the city's legal department and the police union, filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. The complaint detailed not only the illegal detention and assault, but also a pattern and practice of racial profiling within that specific ICE field office. The evidence was so irrefutable that the federal government chose not to fight. They settled. The final figure was $42 million, one of the largest settlements of its kind. Elias Vance, a man who had never sought the spotlight, was now a reluctant public figure. He could have retired, lived comfortably off the settlement, and put the ugly incident behind him. He did not. He donated the vast majority of the money, splitting it between a national civil rights organization, a legal defense fund for immigrants, and a new scholarship program for minority police recruits in his own department. He stayed on the force, more committed than ever. 6 months later, Major Vance stood before a new class of police cadets. He was in his full dress uniform, the bars and medals on his chest glinting under the auditorium lights. He didn't recount the entire story of that day. He didn't have to. Every recruit in the room knew who he was and what had happened to him. Instead, he spoke about the badge they were about to receive. He spoke about authority and the immense, terrifying responsibility that came with it. "Your authority is not a weapon to prove you are strong," he told them, his voice resonating with hard-won wisdom. "It is a tool to protect the weak. Your instincts are not infallible. They are flawed, shaped by your life and your biases, and you must question them every single day. The moment you stop questioning yourself, the moment you believe your badge makes you better than the person you are speaking to, is the moment you are no longer fit to wear it. We are not enforcers. We are guardians. Never, ever forget the difference." His eyes scanned the room of young, eager faces, and he saw the weight of his words land. The encounter with Agent Colfax had left a scar, but it had also forged a new purpose. It had been a crucible, a painful and humiliating test that had revealed the rot of prejudice that can exist within the structures of law enforcement. But it had also revealed his own resilience, the strength of his character, and the solidarity of his community. He had faced down the worst kind of abuse of power, not with anger, but with a quiet, unshakable dignity. And in doing so, he had won a victory not just for himself, but for every person who had ever been judged not by their character, but by the color of their skin. His vindication was not in the money, but in the change he could inspire, ensuring that no other officer, no other citizen, would have to endure what he had on that quiet Tuesday morning.